The average solo GP is dead. Being handcuffed to a practice that only makes money while you're drilling crushes your freedom. Being trapped at the office is no way to experience life. And doing more fillings and crowns ain't the answer to freedom. Stop it. Freedom comes when your practice makes money without you. Freedom is choosing how many days and how you dental. Ready to forge your freedom? Then keep listening to become a super GP and super CEO. This is the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Let's go.
Hello, all you beautiful people out there, and welcome to what's sure to be the best episode of the Titanium Practice Podcast yet. I am your host and personal freedom coach, Dr. Stephen Freeman. How y'all doing today? So, I first want to start out actually this time by saying Happy Mother's Day to all the moms who are listening out there. I hope you are spoiled rotten this coming Sunday, and you guys have lots of good things to eat. So unfortunately, that's how we celebrate things in our family. It's probably not the healthiest thing to do, but eating food is always kind of our favorite way to show my mother and mother-in-law and my wife a very happy Mother's Day. And we'll see what last-second gifts I can come up with for my mother and mother-in-law, which normally turns into flowers in some capacity, whether it be the type that we plant and run them up to Home Depot and go look through the garden section, which is always a grand time to walk around with my mother and mother-in-law in Home Depot. It sounds like a wonderful way to spend an afternoon, but that's how it ends up being. So anyways, happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there. All right, so as usual, if you can for me, hit that subscribe button. And if you can leave a review, that would be amazing. And head on over to titaniumpractice.com to leave us, to get signed up for the Titanium Practice Insider. It really is a lot of good information that we can get out to you that I can't get all into podcasts. All right, let's go for today. I am actually going to do the episode that I had kind of planned on doing when we had talked about the clear aligners, titanium nuggets. So I am actually going to do the traditional ortho, and this should hopefully be the one I can get it all into one episode so we don't have to do it again or take up any more of your time. But I'm telling you right now, if you just listen to my two biggest nuggets, which I'm going to give at the very beginning, you can get into traditional ortho. I'm sure some of this is repeat of what I said about clear aligners, but so much of this can be delegated. And if you can delegate stuff and you don't have to be in the room doing stuff, you can be making money, doing something else, or screwing around on your phone, or playing a game, or just talking to folks in the office, building rapport with them. You can be doing other things if you're not tied to the chair. The other great thing about ortho is there's no such thing as an orthodontic emergency. There's none. There are none. Temporaries fall off. Patients in pain because you have an exposed tooth. That's an emergency. You do an extraction. Patients in pain. Or the patient needs to have an extraction and they're in pain. That's an emergency. There are so many things that we do in general dentistry that can create emergency appointments. In ortho, there's no such thing as an orthodontic emergency. None. I'm telling you, orthodontists have the best job. They have the best freaking job. And so you can emulate that, and you don't need to be an orthodontist. You don't need to spend extra years in school doing this. You don't need to write some kind of paper to graduate and become an orthodontist. You can do this, and more importantly, you don't have to be the one doing it. That's what the assistants are for. Now, maybe you need to muddle through the beginning and help them out, teach them, maybe get some additional resources to teach them how to become orthodontic assistants, and they are out there. But my gosh, once it's up and running, I mean, it's just a great way to make extra money and give people really something that they're looking for, and insurance helps pay for a portion of it if they've got it. I mean, it's just a win-win-win all the way around. And so I'm going to tell you the two biggest things up front of what you can do to get in the orthodontic game that makes this stupid easy to do. Okay? Number one, you are looking for class 1 molar occlusion patients. Those are the patients you are looking for. If they are in class 1 molar relation, you're not messing with the bite. All you're doing is making teeth straight. Making teeth straight is so freaking easy to do because the first wires you're going to put in their mouth are nickel titanium wires, NiTi. All right? These things have basically an elastic memory to them. When you get them, and you've all seen them before, they come in the shape of a horseshoe, or roughly what a perfect arch form is. They remember that shape, so to speak, and they want to go back to that shape. And if you just put brackets in the dead center of the teeth, and I'm going to get to that in just a second, because that's the second nugget. If you put those brackets in the dead center of the clinical crown of the tooth, and then you put a nickel titanium wire in there, and you make sure that all the ligature, so all the ties that go into them, and I'll get to that nugget as well in just a minute, is engaged, and you make sure that each wire, that the wire is engaged in each bracket, you're going to get straight teeth. Because we're not messing with the occlusion. You don't never need to necessarily worry about level and aligning. It's dummy proof. And this is 80% of the people that are going to walk through your doors have class 1 molar occlusion, and all you are doing is just putting the teeth in a straight position, and all you need to do is put them in a nickel titanium wire, and it does all the work. You put it in, you ligate it, and you send them on their way. 6 months from now, they are going to have straight teeth. Will everything be perfect after 6 months? No, it will not. Will everything look 90% close to what it is that you need to be at after 6 months? Hell yes. And that is why 6 Month Smiles exists. And that's why it's a really cool product, and I used to do it until I got an orthodontist. And that's how I got into the bracket game. And I learned some things from it, because it's going to be the second nugget here in just a second. But those nickel titanium wires with that memory do all the work for you. And then you don't need to do, so you don't have to straighten the teeth. The wire straightens the teeth. You don't have to be the person to even put the wire in. Your assistant can do that. You don't have to be the person to put the brackets on the teeth that the wire goes into. Your assistant can do that. Your job is to potentially do some IPR. That's about it. And pretty much once you do the IPR, you've done it. That's all you really need to do. That is what ortho is IPR. Okay? So the second part to this, and some of you may not know this by name, it kind of goes to, but if you've done Invisalign, you know what they are. It just has a different thing in it, is the fact that I got done saying that if you put the bracket in the dead center of the clinical crown of the tooth, it will rotate, it'll twist, it'll tip, it'll do whatever it needs to do to get back to that U shape. And it will line those teeth up perfectly, or really, really close to perfectly. And so essentially, to a degree, that's almost what orthodontists go to school for, is so they can figure out an eyeball where that bracket needs to be placed. So that's really what orthodontists go to school for, is to figure out where to put a bracket. Okay, cool. What if I told you there are things called indirect bonding trays, where between you being assisted by AI and your eyeball sitting on a computer screen can put this thing in the dead center of the clinical crown, or really, really freaking close, without having to eyeball it while the patient's sitting in the chair with their tongue and their lips moving and then whining about whatever, and you just do this all at the computer and get it all set up perfectly, and you can then get trays created that will then bond these brackets to the dead center of the clinical crown. It's like 90% of the game. That's it. If you put it in the dead center of the clinical crown of the tooth, it's going to do what it needs to do, because now the nickel titanium is going to work on those brackets that are perfectly placed. Your cases finish faster. Your cases look great. And you don't need to spend extra time in school to know how to do this, because you're not messing with the occlusion. Now, that's why I'm going to tell you right now, to start off with, please don't do class 2 cases. Don't do class 3 cases, which are only going to be the other 20%. But if I'm telling you right now, if you can do 80% of the ortho that walks through your door, whether it be with clear aligners or with these brackets, oh my gosh. I mean, and you don't sorry, blah, 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 as my kids like to say. Sorry. And you don't even need to be the one doing most of the work. Your assistant is doing the work. And so if you were to add 1 case a week at $5,000, it's $250,000 a year. And these brackets are the expensive brackets. So my orthodontist uses expensive brackets. For an entire case, it's $150 for the brackets and wires. $150. Okay, so there's some adhesive and some other, but I mean, okay. So run with the total overhead of doing these is around $250 out the door. Brackets, sometimes come off. Sometimes you lose an arch wire, you need to bond some stuff in, but let's say it's $250. But I mean, how easy is this? You're not even doing the work. Your assistant's doing the work. And so I don't know, I should have probably done the math ahead of time about all of what that number works out to, but it's essentially $250,000 a year of profit. Profit. This podcast is worth $250,000 a year to you to do 1 case a week. I mean, that's a pretty good ROI for a free podcast. So I'd ask you, please subscribe, leave a review, help me out. I just made you $250,000. You may be sitting there saying there's no way it's that easy, and it truly, truly is that easy. Indirect bonding trays, class 1 molar occlusion. Start whipping out brackets tomorrow and getting these on teeth. And so the biggest issue, so for a long time, I was using the 3M indirect bonding trays, and they're expensive. They are. They add up. Just the bonding tray all by itself, I believe, were like close to $400. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Just for the trays. That doesn't include the brackets. Still, even at the end of the day, it's still pretty damn cheap. But now I can print them. That only cost me $5. I am all over this 3D printing thing. It is just transformative. So please, think about that. Now instead of spending close to $400 on a tray, now I can spend $5 on a tray? Holy crap. Why wouldn't you be doing this? So indirect bonding trays, so we set it up like you have a computer program that's just like the Invisalign ClinCheck, where you can move teeth, move attachments. And now when you go to put attachments on for Invisalign, that's an indirect bonding tray. That's what that is. When you put the attachments on teeth for Invisalign, that's an indirect bonding tray, but you're putting attachments on versus putting brackets on. So now, instead, for traditional ortho, what we have are indirect bonding trays. We have trays, and you load the brackets into the trays, and you adhere them to the teeth. You want to know something really cool? 3M has brackets that are basically pre-primed. They're adhesive coated brackets. So you don't even have to do anything to the bracket. And again, these are the expensive ones. I'm already using this. I already told you the price to do all this. $150. So all you do is you just stick the little bracket into the tray, and that bracket is ready to go. Now you have to condition the tooth, and I don't think we're really going to, which is pretty easy to do, but we're not really going to go into that today. But the bracket's ready to go. And one of the other things that I told you, so we use the tie wires for the first 6 months. So basically there's 3 different wires, and you just rotate, you have them come in every 2 months, and you switch out that wire. The wire, so the wire needs to be engaged into the bracket. The bracket needs to be perfectly placed. The bracket will now be perfectly placed because the indirect bonding tray and the engagement of the wire will be perfect because they have self-ligating brackets. So some of you in dental school, which maybe you're only experienced with this or looking into a patient's mouth, know you got to put those tiny little O-rings on every single frickin' bracket. And it is annoying. Once you get good at putting them on, it's actually pretty easy to do. But again, at least just getting started, and you want to ensure that that bracket is fully, or the wire is fully engaged within that bracket. These self-ligating brackets are basically a little window you slide shut. Just a little whoop, slide it shut, closed, done, ligated, engaged, ready to rock, ready to straighten the tooth, ready to dominate. I mean, you can probably hear the excitement in my voice because it is that easy, and I don't know how else to tell you how easy it is that you now, because of class 1 molar, you're not worrying about the bite. So now we need to perfectly position brackets, and you do that with an indirect bonding tray, and then you put a memory tie wire into these brackets, and you need to make sure that they're engaged. And you do that with self-ligating brackets, and these brackets are already adhered, so all you really need to do is etch and bond the teeth. But again, you don't have to do that. Your assistant can do that. They will etch and bond the tooth and seat this indirect bonding tray in their mouth and cure. That's it. You will see them in 2 months. They'll look pretty darn good. You'll see them then in another 2 months, which is 4 months, and they'll look really good. And then you'll see them at 6 months and say, are we done? But one of the problems is there will be a couple of teeth that probably still need just a little bit of help. Some easy things to do that we can teach you how to make those simple, minor adjustments. And sometimes it's with the dental drill. I mean, if you're doing this on adults, they'll have worn their teeth for a long time, and so especially the lower incisors might be a little bit of a roller coaster. 24 is shorter than 25 because it's been tucked behind it and whatever, and zip, dental drill, level it out, done. Are we done? So the problem kind of becomes is that if you charge $5,000, it's crazy, because even if you're done and the patient's happy and they love how they look and you love how they look, the patient's like, wait, I just paid you $5,000 to fix my teeth in 6 months. They're going to wonder why they paid you so much. It's the weirdest thing. Shouldn't you feel like they should be like, can I pay you more so that you can have me done in 4 months? No. They want to feel like they got their money's worth out of this. So you got to do some finishing. And again, we can easily teach you how to do that finishing. It is very simple. It's very simple to do. But those first 3 wires are going to do 80 to 90% of all of the work, and 90% of your patients will want to be done. They'll be like, this is it. This is good enough. I'm happy with what I am seeing, and I just want to be done because it's great. Because again, we're not talking about fine-tuning a bite. Moving molars, that's harder to do and takes longer to do. And that's where everyone gets in this mindset that braces should be so long, is because moving molars it's easy to do, it just takes time. But we're not having to worry about moving molars because we're dealing with a first class 1 occlusion. So that's the awesome thing about this, is that there is just no, you don't need to worry about that. So now all we're really doing is straightening, bicuspid to bicuspid, and that's it. And that's, bicuspids are a little bit harder, but not really that much harder than moving the front 6 teeth. So at the end of the day, I just really want to see you get in the game in a way that you can add essentially $250,000 in profit. And yes, especially if you really got into seeing a patient a week, over time, that is going to start to kind of fill up those chairs. But at the end of the day, think about that. That's essentially being able to produce money while you're not there, because in order to get these indirect bonding trays, you're going to scan. So great, get an ortho case started while you are on a cruise. Do you know how often I get that? Oh yeah, Miss Jones finally said she wanted to do the brackets and wires, and great, cool. So we scanned her. Awesome. The greatest, in my opinion, like outside of family and happiness of things with family, the greatest joy you'll ever get is sitting poolside and getting a text saying, yeah, we just collected $5,000 from Mrs. Jones. That is freedom. That is the definition of freedom. You cannot cut a crown next to the pool. Not going to happen. And it'd be weird if you tried to, I guess. But you can absolutely get a text sitting poolside saying, we closed on a case, we scanned her, we need to make indirect bonding trays for Mrs. Jones, so that when you come on back in, you can do it. And you can do it on your phone. You can approve the design and get it, and they can be, getting it all set up and everything like that. And away you go. They don't need you for it. They don't need you for it. And that is the whole point. When I talk about being a freedom coach, I'm trying to show you how to make money in a shorter amount of time, and even better when you're not even there. That is the nutshell of a titanium practice right there. You sitting poolside receiving a text saying, we just closed on a $5,000 case. It's great. And I get it all the time. So I would encourage you to look more into this. It honestly is as easy as I'm telling you that it is. Where you get yourself into trouble, is when you start trying to move molars. Because now you're messing with the occlusion. Messing with occlusion is much harder than basically just doing cosmetic work. And these patients are all over the place. It's 80% of them. I love my orthodontist. I'm glad we have our orthodontist. I truly am. But my gosh, I think I respect the heck out of orthodontists, because where they really make their money, or earn their money, I should say, is dealing with molar or with occlusion problems. Dealing with occlusion problems is where they earn their money. And the funny thing is, they don't really charge too much more to do that. So basically they get a ton of money for all these easy cases, and then they don't charge that much more for a hard case. I don't get it, but maybe it's just they feel like they make enough money, so they don't feel like they need to do it. But if you're just dealing with class 1 molar occlusion, and you get indirect bonding trays, and you use self-ligating brackets, again, yes, initially you'll probably need to put in a little bit of elbow grease to get this thing rolling and making it happen. But my word, you're talking about putting $250,000 into your bank every single year, and you barely need to do anything with it after you finally get your first couple of cases started. I'm not even talking about being finished. Started. That's it. Get a couple under your belt so you know exactly. They know how to bond the trays and the brackets on. Again, it's not that hard to do. Just make sure the thing's fully seated. Make sure they etched and primed correctly. Tray fully seated, etched, primed, and that would be my other things. The investment into this, the biggest investment, I guess 2 biggest investments, is if you're doing traditional ortho, you should have a Ceph. You should have a Ceph of your patient, because that's what they want for a specialist. For a specialist, that's standard of care. Okay? Ceph, pan, photos, Okay? And then after that is make sure you have a high-powered curing light. You got to have a high-powered curing light because you want to get these brackets bonded and in. And our ladies are doing it in under 20 minutes on an arch. And that may sound like it, but I mean, it's like 17, 18 minutes to get a whole arch bonded. If you do them without indirect bonding trays, it's more like an hour to do an arch. So the actual, brackets on day is shorter, it's better, it's easier, and you'll be done sooner. Indirect bonding tray cases, really you can be done in 6 months most of the time. You really can be. But they end up being in them for about a year to 18 months. Somewhere in that ballpark. But if the patient says they're done because their bite's fine. So now you're just talking about cosmetics. And beauty's in the eye of the beholder, so you can be done. So Ceph, pan, photos, high-powered curing light. We use the 3M, I think it's the pulsar that we use. And it's an expensive curing light. But it rapidly cures the brackets into place and gets you all taken care of. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and stop there for today. I'm going to remind you, if you can, hit that subscribe button, because I just hopefully put $250,000 a year into your pocket. Leave us a review. I'd really appreciate it. And head over to titaniumpractice.com to get signed up for the Insider's newsletter. And we will end today again by saying Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And I will talk to you next time. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
You've been listening to the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Please hit the like and subscribe button and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Titanium Practice. Questions or comments? Send an email to info@titaniumpractice.com. Join us next time to help turn your average practice into a titanium practice.